I always say that I never sang any style of music that I hadn't heard in my household growing up. I can't approach it with any kind of authenticity.
She was the voice that could hush a stadium, the genre-bending queen. But offstage, Linda Ronstadt kept a list of betrayals that stung worse than any lyric she ever crooned. In this video, we examine the 7 musicians who had encounters with Ronstadt that left scars that lingered. From stage-door betrayals to public embarrassments, these accounts expose the not-so-secret tensions of rock and roll. Don Henley, the Eagles' number 7. Don Henley and the Eagles, prior to the time the Eagles sold out stadiums, they were 2 anonymous musicians, Don Henley and Glenn Frey, attempting to establish themselves in Los Angeles. Linda Ronstadt disrupted it all for them. In 1971, she needed a backing band for her upcoming tour and decided to give these 2 a chance. Henley played drums and sang harmonies. Frey played guitar. The lineup also included Randy Meisner and Bernie Leadon. That tour became the foundation for one of the biggest rock bands in history, the Eagles. Ronstadt didn't just give them a job. She gave them exposure, direction, and credibility. At that time, she was a rising star with a strong reputation in country rock. Industry insiders paid attention to her band. She helped them build contacts, and by the end of the tour, Frey and Henley had decided to branch out and form their own group. Ronstadt even supported that decision. She didn't try to keep them. She released them and even recommended record executives give them a listen. The Eagles burst forth right away. By 1973, they had Take It Easy as a hit. Then came Desperado, One of These Nights, and Hotel California. Meanwhile, Ronstadt just kept getting better as a solo artist. The guy she gave a break to ended up Stadium Monsters. But behind the scenes, something went wrong. Henley's attitude changed. Celebrity did it. He allegedly became more controlling and disdainful of Ronstadt's musical style. In the mid-70s, Henley, in an interview, made a veiled but telling comment that Ronstadt's style was safe and too polished. To Ronstadt, who prized artistry and musical evolution, that hurt. She felt disrespected, not only because she gave him a shot, but because he ignored the impact she had on the band's early sound. What actually created a schism, however, was what occurred offstage. Ronstadt learned Henley had been writing her name to get into clubs and concerts she wasn't on. He supposedly asked for guest status on a tour she headlined, without her knowledge. When she learned about it, she canceled all his backstage passes. Henley was never again welcome at any of her performances after that. Industry sources said Ronstadt took care of the situation discreetly but firmly. She didn't speak out against Henley in the media. She didn't cause a scene. She just cut him loose. For a woman who had cultivated her reputation on class and professionalism, it was a boundary she didn't often cross. This time, however, she made an exception. Here's the nuance most people overlook. Ronstadt was more than a singer. She had her behind-the-scenes influence, particularly in talent shaping. The Eagles had not yet discovered their sound when they were shaped by Ronstadt's touring regimen, stagecraft, and vocal layering approaches. Frey later claimed that they discovered the importance of harmony by observing her record vocals. That's a significant aspect of what made the Eagles sound so legendary. But Henley never publicly conceded that influence. Rather, he appeared to separate himself from the beginnings, perhaps to establish the Eagles' identity as independent and self-taught. Ronstadt never asked for credit, but those privy to the whole story recognized the trend. Ronstadt's then-producer, John Boylan, played a large role in bringing Frey and Henley to her. That introduction wasn't coincidental. It was deliberate. Ronstadt wasn't merely an outside witness to the creation of the Eagles. She was among the first stones laid. But the manner in which Henley distanced himself from that origin felt like a secret betrayal. After the estrangement, the two didn't see each other much again. Ronstadt went on to diversify, dabbling in opera, mariachi, and big band. Henley remained with the classic rock sound and went on to have a solo career. They were both successful in their own way, but that initial bond was never verbalized. Jim Morrison's backstage boorishness and public demeaning of Linda Ronstadt left a deep wound on their budding relationship. Jim Morrison, number 6. Jim Morrison's onstage antics. It took Linda Ronstadt some time to discover her niche in the music industry in 1968. The Stone Ponies, who were a band that had a hit record with different drum, introduced her to fame. When she rose to fame, she crossed paths with Jim Morrison, the lead vocalist of The Doors. The band was already famous for their crazy performances and wild antics of Morrison. What transpired between them on stage, as opposed to what was intended, set back their careers. Following his lead, Morrison attended a concert at which Ronstadt opened. She was performing in the middle of her set when he emerged from backstage, approached her, and yanked her toward him in front of the entire crowd. He attempted to kiss her right there on stage without consulting her. It was uncomfortable, unprofessional, and entirely unexpected. Ronstadt halted and appeared stunned. It was that instance that made her appear terrible before thousands of individuals and dampened the atmosphere. It wasn't a spontaneous decision. Morrison acted as if in character with a track record. By 1968, his alcohol and drug intake was escalating, and he tended to create issues on the concerts. But this one was different in the sense that it involved another artist who did not want to be used as part of his theatrics on stage. Morrison treated Ronstadt like a prop in his production instead of a friend. Ronstadt did not cause a scene backstage after the performance. Folks knew her to remain calm out in public, but folks who were close to her claimed that what occurred really rattled her. Although she didn't complain about it, her crew explained to her that she wouldn't be performing close to Morrison again. She didn't need that sort of turmoil as her career evolved. The performance was only one aspect of the issue. A few weeks after that, Morrison made matters worse. On a radio show, he mocked Ronstadt and described her as sweet but spineless. He stated that she lacked fire in her music and never stood up for herself. This was rude and also touchy. It was at the hands of someone who was far more famous and influential at the time. The comment spread like wildfire, and Ronstadt's confidence was defeated. But she still didn't respond in the public eye. Not all did she behave that way. She continued to add to her catalog and reputation show by show, however. But she did have the Morrison moment, and it is said to have altered the way she operated in the music industry. From that point on, Ronstadt became more cautious about her stage presence and personal boundaries. She began to be more selective in choosing her companions and steered clear of tours with artists who were reputed for their out-of-control behavior. This is the most significant aspect that the majority is unaware of. Ronstadt was already gaining respect within the industry in the background. Producers and managers viewed her as more than just another up-and-coming voice. They viewed her as a careerist who had long-term possibilities. Following the Morrison incident, some of the insiders gave her extra attention. They appreciated how she handled it. No drama, only distance. It gave her the feel-good about being in a self-absorbed world. Meanwhile, Morrison continued spinning. He started drinking too much, and his stage staggering increased. Within less than 3 years, he died at the age of 27. Although he made his impression in rock history, things that occurred with Ronstadt remind us that even being so great, he was also terribly flawed. It wasn't only about his attitude. It was also about the career of another artist because he stepped over lines that he shouldn't have. Ronstadt took the event as the start of something different, not the end of the world. She continued on without ever concentrating on drama. No surprise, she came into her own because she was gifted and she worked hard. Morrison left immediately, whereas Ronstadt established a career spanning decades. Number 5. Neil Young's dismissal. The mid-1970s were Linda Ronstadt's peak years. Millions of her records were purchased, and there was nobody else with a voice like hers. She was the sole female in charge of a rock scene predominantly composed of men. Neil Young was at his best also at about the same time. His political perspective and folk rock sound were both acclaimed. They were both respected artists, although they were involved in highly disparate styles of music. So, when they performed together at a politically fueled benefit concert in 1976, things didn't go exactly as expected. There were many musicians who attended the event who were also activists campaigning for the rights of farm workers. Linda Ronstadt added the lineup with such big names as Neil Young because she has always believed in causes such as these. It looked like a solid combination of voices on paper. But behind the scenes, things went sour in a hurry. Young had definite notions about what protest music should sound like: raw, desperate, and emotionally barren. Ronstadt lacked the image he was after because her performance was too crisp and her sound radio ready. Behind the scenes, he released her without hanging on. He made it obvious that he didn't approve of her style for the event, and he didn't pay attention to her ideas in practice. Witnesses reported that he informed them her music was too commercial and too clean for a protest venue. This was not just about differing tastes. It was one-on-one. Ronstadt was surprised